from patterns to details. So again, even here we talk about, we stress on energy that we are putting in when we are designing anything, designing our home, designing our workspace, designing our farmlands, or designing anything. It always starts from the patterns. It's not just like I randomly design something and that should serve my purpose. So when you, what is a pattern? Anybody? So designing from patterns, meaning if I take me as a subject, I have my own patterns, right? I have my own patterns of going to bed. I have my own patterns of getting up. I have my own patterns of eating. I have my own patterns of this thing. So when something is being designed for Sneha, or when something is being designed for Prerna or anybody, it should be designed based on their pattern, and then you then start it into a detailing or designing. It should not be a generic thing where you just design something. Even in nature, if you see, there is always different patterns. Patterns are taken from nature because the energy efficiency is always minimal when you take designs from nature. And even in planting, if we get in a farm context, when we are planting something, it's always not the straight one. It's not always the linear pattern. We look at different patterns. The natural pattern, well, one of the very common natural pattern in nature is random. So anything that you see happens randomly. It is not like I have to, the seed, the plant tree doesn't think the seed has to fall in a straight line, or the seed has to fall in a 4 rows of lines, or nothing like that. They have their own patterns. It's most of the patterns are random. So when you are designing something, you have to look at different patterns, different designs, and implement in them in such a way, but not in a very conventional linear straight patterns. Next. The next principle of permaculture is integration rather than segregation. This is also a very important principle, and this can be applied in any context. So when you're working together, when you're working on something, do you, is it nicer if you're working by yourself or you're working with a group of people? So if, for example, there's a doctor and who's working on one specific thing, can something happen just with one specialization? There should be an integration, right? It is not just, if for anything you cannot, it's just not the cardiologist who need to make the decision. There should be doctors from different departments coming together and working on something. So integrate rather than segregation of each thing in our lives, in our daily lives. If there is a lot of integration instead of segregation, integration is very important. The more the diversity, the more people you integrate, the more different subjects you integrate, the more beneficial the outcome is. Even when we are talking about agriculture, it's not just about agriculture. Earlier it was different, and now you have different fields in agriculture. Somebody says there's an entomology department, there is a microbiology department, there is a biochemistry department, there is some other department, there's some other department. Unless they all come together and work together, you will not get beneficial solutions. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing even when we are working at home. If I'm pushing my bed from one room to another, it's not just I'm putting in a lot of energy in doing that. Instead, if you have somebody else next to you, ask them, take their help, integrate, and then just finish the work quick instead of doing. So this is just an example I'm giving. So integration is something very important. In integration, we can, in a farm context, we can talk about chickens. When you have chickens and the cocks and the hens placed in a certain place, it is, I cannot just see chickens as something that are giving me eggs, or as something that is giving me meat. You should also look at the different functions. So when I'm seeing chickens and I have cattle, be it cows or buffaloes or donkeys or anything next to me, I put the chickens and the cattle next to each other, because I'm not just seeing chicken as something that is giving me eggs and meat, but also something that is helping the cattle remove its insects from its body, or help cleaning that space up. So if you place both the elements together, which is integration, the beneficial outcomes are more, rather than seeing them as two separate elements. Next. Using small and slow solutions. So this is very important, even this one, because anything that you want to start, anything that you want to implement in life, anything that you want to start off in a garden or in your land, you have to always start small. Starting small is very important, and going slow is very important. Nowadays we as humans are in rush, we lost patience, we don't have patience, we just want everything tick 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 done. So the art of patience is gone. People are not seeing things like how they used to be. So when you start off small, there's always something that you learn. The more you observe, the more you interact, the better the outcome is. So if, for example, if I'm starting a land and I'm starting to sow something in my land, and I have 50 acres of land, and I want to do all the 50 acres, and I just go at a stretch and sow off all the 50 acres. So something happened, and all my crop is gone, or all my trees are gone, or everything that I did on the farm is gone. What happens? What mistake did I do there? So when you are looking at, when you're doing things in a bigger and a very large situations, if there is a loss that is happening to you in any way, be it financial, be it in terms of plants, be it in terms of money, be it in any terms, when you are doing something in a large extent, the loss will also be in the similar way. So anything that you do need to start off small, because even if you lose something, you're going to just lose a little bit of it, but not the whole. So if I'm start, like I said, I gave an example of starting of 50 acres. Imagine I just start off with 1 acre for my one first year, or I just start off in my balcony first. Before you start, before one start going for rooftop and establishing everything, just because you wanted to do, if something goes wrong, it means the entire thing is gone. So if you start off very small, be it in your balconies or be it in the 1 acre I said, if there is any feedback that the nature is giving me or any situation is giving me, I accept that feedback and self regulate myself and tell Sneha, this is not the right way to go. See, I've done it one in 1 acre or in my backyard, and I faced this problem. So how would I solve it if I do it in 50 acres? That's how I think. But I don't, one shouldn't just go and start everything in a large extent. So using small and slow solutions is very important. Next, use and value diversity is another principle. Uh, the 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 diversity what we are talking now is not just in terms of plant diversity. It could be any diversity, even diversity of your food. If you're eating lady's finger every day, what happens? Just one vegetable. Okay. So diversity even in your food, diversity in the different fields of work that you're having. If from a uh, single crop, even in cropping patterns, there is, if you just go for one particular cropping variety or one particular cropping system, there's always, it's just like how you do with the small solutions. If you're going for one particular crop or one particular vegetable, there is less nutrition that you are getting as a human, there's less nutrition that soil is getting, and there is no diversity where there, if you're losing your crop, you're losing the whole crop that you have put. If imagine if I have different kinds of crops in my cropland and not just one particular crop, which means there is diversity. Even if I lose one, there is always an option of having one, right? So it's the same even in your home when you're cooking. If you have diverse varieties of food, it means you're getting diverse variety of nutrients into your body, into your body. So diversity is very important. Diversity in terms of seeds, this is very important. Having seed diversity, saving seed diversity. Seeds are something which are called land races. Those are the ones that we are losing. Saving heirloom seeds. The diversity of seed once in India, if you see, each seed had hundreds and thousands of varieties. But now if you come down, you just have two varieties or three varieties of each. So as the diversity is losing, the natural elements that are attached to that diverse systems is also losing. So diversity is very important in our thinking, in our lives, in our soil, and in our ecosystem. uh, using edges and valuing marginals, this specifically you can apply in the context of growing food. When you are growing food um, in a piece of land or in a garden, so the more the edges you have, so not planting in straight lines but having more edges, the more the edges, the more number you can plant, the more nutrition the plant gets. The more straight it is, imagine if I have just straight lines, the number of plants that I can plant there is could be 50. But if I go in different edges, edges are like, if you have, did you ever see a river flowing? How does it flow? Like a serpentine, like a river. Whenever it's flowing like a river, there are a lot of edges. So when you see a lot of edges where I'm planting in a linear pattern, it's just 50. But when I'm going in a serpentine pattern, it's 60 or 70. So using that space for nutrients and using that space to incorporate more plants or um, more things is very much beneficial. Even in the river ecosystem, again, like I said, the patterns and lot of curves, when the curves happen, there's a lot of sedimentation, lot of nutrient that the river leaves on the river beds. So having meandering pattern is something very important. It's not having, using edges beneficially is very important. And also one other example in an urban context is when you're working together. So you, in your office, you have two different departments. One is the sales department and one is a marketing department. So people living on both the sides on this corner have a different benefit. But the people who are living in between both the sales and the marketing, who are in the corner, they benefit more because they have access to sales, they have access to marketing. So that is an edge in an office setting. You get to access both the departments. Next one. Creatively use and respond to change. Uh, this in today's context, you can think of how things have rapidly been changing for the last couple of years or last few decades. And you have been so whenever there is something like that happening, we have to creatively use that situation and respond to the change. So what happened when there was the situation of COVID, when there was COVID, and then everybody has learned something, right? Everybody has learned something that we need to protect nature, we need to make healthy soils, we need to eat good food, we need to reduce our dependence on medicines as much as possible and start eating healthy food. So that is a situation which forced you to respond, which forced the humanity, which forced the humans to respond to that change and creatively make use of the situation. So any situation like that, if there is uh, any situation like that, we have to creatively respond. So if I say, um, in the olden days the rainfall pattern has been like this, or my great grandfathers have been doing like that, and I will still continue to do that, will that work in the current context? Will that continue in this present situation? No, right? Because their practice might be a good one, but if I implement it in the wrong time, where the rainfall pattern has changed, where the summers, the seasons are changing, everything has been changing, right? Everything has been changing, but I still want to implement the same thing that my great grandfather has done. It will not work in this context. What should I do then? I should creatively use that situation and respond to the change. I have to do it in a different way. Maybe I used to sow my crops in June earlier. Now I should do it only in June second week because the rains are not happening. So you need to make your own changes and respond creatively, use that situation and respond to the changes. So these are the 12 important principles of permaculture, and this forms the basis. These are not just uh, there are not just 12 principles, and they're way beyond that, and you can keep adding more to it based on your thinking, based on your working, based on your observations. But these are the design principles which you can apply to design anywhere, be it your life, be it your growing, be it your farming, be it your work sector.